Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number 4 still waiting for, well, bring on the chase. Out on the field at Mile High, Broncos win is our desire. Coupled with a break, brew and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
Welcome into the DNVR Broncos podcast. I'm your host, Zac Stevens, joined by my man, Andrew Mason, coming live to you from Studio B. And before we hop into the show, got to tell you about our presenting sponsor, MSU Denver Online, because time and time again, the one thing that can protect you against economic downturn is an education allowing you to adapt into varying careers. So go build your toolbox now. If you're out of high school or whether you're in a career and want to change careers or just continue to build that toolbox, go do it over with our friends over at MSU Denver Online. My boy, Mace, welcome back. Great to see you, my friend.
It's good to be back. First of all, since I haven't said it in person, at least on air, congratulations.
Oh, why, thank you. I appreciate
it. On the engagement. Congratulations to you both. You picked a wonderful spot.
Thank you. Yes, it worked out. It worked out perfectly. When she picked the hike, I was like, man, this is going to be perfect.
Were you at all worried that she would say no?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, it's actually crazy. I can be kind of a nervous person, but I wasn't nervous at all, thankfully.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Then you chose wisely then.
Yes, it would have been awkward having to do the hike back down, the drive back home. So thankfully, she didn't say no.
Yeah, this isn't, and you chose a good spot. And that's another thing. Like I like the ball game engagements. I have a theory that ball game engagements usually don't work out. I'm sure there are some who can counter that and disagree. That's fine. That's a perfect spot, and I think you guys are going to be very happy together. And
well, thank you.
It's wonderful news. 11 years, right?
11 years. Yep, 11 years and counting.
My wife wouldn't have let me wait 11 years.
I know.
I was getting the
lucky.
pressure after like a year and 2 or 3 months. So
then when did it happen?
It happened. It actually, the weird thing is it happened by accident. I hadn't even bought a ring. We were just talking about it, and next thing you know, like we're just kind of randomly looking up dates and all that. We're making reservations, and I said, yeah, you know what this means? We're engaged. Because we just set a date, and we have a place where we want to do it. And I'm like, I better go buy a ring now.
Oh, wow, that's hilarious. I love it. It happens all the different ways. I love hearing that. And Mace, congratulations on another championship. Is that a 2021 hat?
No, it's still 2020.
Okay.
I wasted very little time placing the order. The funny thing is, like, my parents didn't know what to get me, and so, they got me cash for my birthday last month, and they're like, what are you going to spend it on? I said, well, if the Lightning can finish it off, I know exactly it's all going toward merch for the championship. And so in the hours after, I put my purchase on there on Fanatics, and so I'm waiting for it. If I didn't have to come back here for the show, I wish I was at the boat parade right now in Tampa, because
is that today?
That's going on literally right now. The Lightning is cruising up the Hillsborough River in Tampa, and it's funny, like the things that we get out of this pandemic and how everything has changed in Tampa, because they've had literally three championships in the last year. They had to do the boat parade at first because it was social distancing. Now I think they've happened upon something they're going to do if and when there are any more championships. Although with 3 titles in Tampa in the last 10 months, sometimes you don't get 3 titles in decades.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't guarantee there's going to be more, but it's pretty sweet. And having followed the Lightning from their inception and their expansion days, which were a little bit crazy, and what they went through in the first decade or so of the franchise, to see where they are and how far that club has come compared to where it started from back in it was awarded in 1990. The first game was in 1992. It blows my mind that they are where they are, that they are the standard bearer of the NHL right now, and one of the great franchises in sports, considering that this was a franchise where cash was an issue. Literally, they tried to they once argued about a smudged fax in a free agent, the Chris Gratton thing back in, I believe, 1997.
Broncos know about fax mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they had all these. They had bad ownership. They were literally for a while owned by the Japanese mafia. I kid you not.
Wow.
Yes, literally, and then owned by a guy who spoke like a revival preacher and sold the team after a year. It's a franchise and a fan base. It's been through an awful lot, but they're sitting here on the mountaintop. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
you never, you never take it for granted, of course. But sports has the highs and lows. The Lightning wins. Ronald Acuna tears his ACL. England loses in a shootout last night.
Yeah, what a game.
Oh, man. I mean, it's just, I feel like from a sports perspective, I've been to the mountaintop and I've been to the lowest of lows in the last about 100 hours or so.
Yeah.
But it's part of the experience. It's part of the ride, right?
I mean, what a weekend in sports for, especially considering none of it revolved around Denver sports. It was all just other things.
Right.
The All-Star Game festivities, the fight on Saturday night, which was just popping.
I heard
at the
you
DNVR
were
bar.
I heard you were downstairs,
yes,
Jack.
Yes, it was. It was so much fun. It was so cool. And then of course you had the soccer game yesterday, which the bar was also popping for. It's a cool time because sometimes in the summer, Mace, there's just nothing going on, especially with the Rockies with where they're at. So it was cool to kind of have a revival of sports for a little bit.
Maybe DNVR soccer needs to be a thing.
Well, this was a soccer pub back in the day.
I know, but maybe Saturday mornings, Premier League. On home game weekends, me sitting downstairs at a bar stool watching Manchester City. I'm just saying.
What we've seen so far is the bar can embrace that.
Yeah.
No doubt
There's
about
room,
that.
There's room for all of it here.
Yes, there is. And Mace, there was a little bit of Broncos news this weekend. Von Miller talked with Mike Kliss, and Mike put out a big article with a lot of what they said. And a big takeaway from that was, Mace, we've talked about Von Miller this past year. Is he going to be on the team this year? If he's on the team, well, he's entering a contract year. Could this be his final season in town? We've been talking about that for about a year now.
Yeah.
Was last year his final year? Turns out it wasn't. Now, is this year his final year? We're going to be talking about that for a while. But Von, that's not where his head is at. He says he wants to play 5 to 7 more years, despite being 32 years old right now. And the reason for that is he's having his son, which he's talked about a lot this offseason, supposed to be born in about the next month or so. And he says he wants his son to be able to watch him play football, which I think is an awesome dream for every athlete to have their kids watch them play and remember it. And so he says that's like 5 to 7 years down the road. And so he wants to play for 5 to 7 years. So in Von's eyes, we're not talking about, is this year the last year of his career? Is this year the last year of him being a Bronco? His contract says it could be that, but he's saying, no, I'm thinking way down the road.
Yeah, and I think kind of the key thing is not just watch, but watch and remember, because, of course,
Right.
I'm sure his infant son will be at some games this year, but a kid it's not going to mean anything if your dad is playing a sport until you get to about 4, 5, 6 years old.
Right.
So that really does mean 5 to 7 years down the line. And it's not without precedent, because when I think about Von talking about 5 to 7 years, the name that immediately pops in my mind just retired after the 2018 season. I covered him in Carolina. That's Julius Peppers.
Yep.
And Pep played 17 seasons. Now, of course, what happened was he ended up leaving Carolina after 8 years in free agency, went to Chicago, went on to Green Bay, finally came back at the end. And the thing,
was he just there 1 year at the end?
No, came back for 2.
Two.
Came back
Okay.
for 2. Came back. And the evolution of Pep was fascinating, and obviously freakish athlete, kind of like Vaughn is. I mean, I think the only big difference is that Vaughn has had 2 major injuries now.
Right.
In his first 10 years in the NFL. If you look at Julius Peppers, he missed 4 games as a rookie. He missed a couple of games in 2007. That was it. He literally only missed 6 games in his entire career. So Pep was able to go on for 17 years, in part because he was blessed with really good health.
Right.
Vaughn hasn't had that now. That doesn't mean he can't go on and have the same type of career. It does mean that there is kind of that big difference between the two of them in terms of injury history. But you look at at what Pep did after he turned 32, what he did in his last 7 years, starting with the 2012 season in Chicago. 11.5, 7, 7, 10.5, 7.5, 11, and 5 were his sack totals. He kind of embraced being a different player. He accepted that he wasn't what he was early on in his career when he was putting up a 14.5 sack season, 13 sack season. He accepted that he wasn't that, and and he changed. And by the end of his career, Zach, he was a pass rush specialist. Mm-hmm. He only started 13 games in his last 2 years when he came back to Carolina. He was a guy who came in sub packages. He was a pass rush specialist, but he did that well, and he embraced a different role. If Vaughn can embrace that different role and embrace, playing fewer snaps, being more of a specialist, why can't he play 5 to 7 more years?
Yeah, there's no reason not to. And Mason, talking about that pass specialist role really reminds me of Von Miller and the conversations we've had with him over the last couple of years, even dating back 2 years from now. He was talking about, is being 30 catching up to you? Do you feel it? And he said, no, here's when you know that I will be feeling my age and not necessarily slowing down, but needing to adjust is when I am a pass rush specialist, when I'm not an every down player, when I'm there on third down. So that told me, okay, he has a willingness to accept that role when he's ready for it. He's not ready for it now. Obviously, he's not ready for that this year because you're not paying a guy $20 million and he's not coming back on a revenge tour being a third down guy. So not this year, but does that take place next year and moving forward for those 5 to 7 years, kind of like you talked about Julius Peppers? And he averaged what in those last 5 years? About 10 sacks, maybe 9 sacks per season?
Yeah, if you want me to add it up or just
it's about that, right?
Yeah, it's about 8.5, 9 sacks.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay.
For the right price, for the right role. But this year is not it. And that's, again, Mace, why I just get so frustrated when I hear people say, Von Miller, man, if he can get 10 sacks this year, that would be awesome. No, it wouldn't be awesome. He needs to be better than that. You're paying him big time. He's going to be playing big time. He's not going to just be in on specialist roles. So he needs a big season this year. But talking about a couple years from now, Von Miller flirting with 10 sacks and being happy with that is absolutely realistic and something that the Broncos would absolutely embrace as well.
Yeah, and in 2019 played 79% of the snaps, 2018 played 78%. His career snap percentage since 2013, of course, was the year that he was hurt.
Right.
Like the last 6 seasons he's played anywhere between 78 and 86% of snaps.
A lot.
Yes, he's played a lot. Now, it's funny to look back on how we know Wade Phillips liked to rotate liberally in terms of the edge rushers.
Right.
But in 2016, for example, Wade's second season as defensive coordinator, Vaughn still played 81% of the snaps.
Mm-hmm. And we know Vic is the opposite. He doesn't like to rotate. He likes to keep his guys out there.
And this is something where I would hope Vic has some flexibility here. Because Vaughn, coming off the injury and having the rehab, he looks to be in good shape, but he's still an 11-year guy coming off an injury. Do you think, in terms of getting him down to 70 or 75%
He's back.
Yeah, had to, right? Had to get in today. Do you think, in terms of getting him down to that number? Look, you got Malik Reed. Malik Reed showed last year he's a trustworthy player to play a good chunk of snaps.
Yep.
So I would think Malik gives you the capability, if Vic is willing to kind of be flexible on how he wants to use his edges, to give Vaughn a rest. But the problem is, who benefits from that? And that's where the contract situation comes into play, because it's possible that you could be giving him some rest, keeping him fresher, and the beneficiary of that could be, should I do the worst case scenario or just do a bad scenario?
Hit me with both.
Okay, the worst case scenario is Von Miller, Kansas City Chief.
Oh no!
The bad scenario is just Vaughn going to a team that is more clearly ready to contend. That's there right now. Maybe he goes to Arizona. Like Von Miller, Arizona Cardinal, because Kyler Murray has emerged and their defense wants one more thing.
Next to J.J. Watt?
Yeah, although I don't know if Vaughn would want to play for Vance Joseph again, although he did have a really good season with VJ back in 2018. That was his last big sack year. Or, because Tampa Bay just keeps finding ways to make people fit. Jason Pierre-Paul perhaps retires. Oh, we'll just go get Von Miller.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I'd be okay. Personally, I'd be okay with that.
Because
but I know
Tom says he's playing another 5 to 7 years or something crazy.
Yeah, but that's where, honestly, with Vaughn, there's a couple of things in play. Number one, how much do you want to pay? Number two, some people are going to cringe at bringing up this name. If Aaron Rodgers is a Bronco, I think the chances of Von Miller being back with Denver double.
I agree because I think Von will want to win.
Right.
I think Von will be more open to taking a hometown discount. And what we've seen to this point, Mace, is Von has not been open to taking any type of hometown discount. You can go back to when he got his contract. There was no hometown discount there. They set the record for a defensive player's contract in history, and that held for 2 years. Now, he wasn't willing to take a pay cut this last year. We know the Broncos asked him to, and he said no. So maybe that's what gets him to take a pay cut, because there was no Peyton Manning back when he was in 2016 getting the new contract. Peyton had retired by then. There's right now no quarterback that is established that can prove that they can be a champion now, so he didn't take a pay cut. Maybe that's what changes.
Yeah, and Vaughn, if you kind of look at the people that he leans on, the people who've made him who he is, the guys at the top of the list are Elvis Dumervil and DeMarcus Ware.
Right.
And obviously with Doom, it wasn't what anyone wanted. You had the fax thing. That time now the fax incidents come up.
Yeah.
But Doom goes to Baltimore and is an all-pro. DeMarcus leaves Dallas for Denver.
Yep.
Kind of the point being, these guys all had excellent second acts. Elvis didn't get the ring with Baltimore, but he continued playing at the high level that we knew he could play at in Denver. By the way, Elvis should be a Ring of Famer. That's another podcast entirely. And then DeMarcus, even though he was battling injuries and he was rotated out a little more liberally than Vaughn. You can see that in their playtime percentages when the two of them were together in Denver. He is arguably remembered as much as a Bronco as he is as a Cowboy because he was part of a Super Bowl team. And so the reason why I bring those guys up is Vaughn will not be afraid of moving on. He's not scared to go someplace new because the two guys that kind of made him who he is as a pass rusher and kind of showed him the ropes, taught him how to be a pro, they left, and certainly things worked out very well for both Elvis and D-Ware.
Yeah, and those are people that he's still very close with now, so they could give him that advice. Hey, Vaughn, it's going to be very difficult to leave, but it doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. So you hope that it doesn't come to that because you hope that Aaron Rodgers gets traded here and Vaughn says, holy cow, I want to end my career here. And so then the question comes, which is the headline of our show, should the Broncos extend Von Miller? And Mace, I want to get your answer to that, but first I got to tell you guys about our friends over at Chevalier Mortgage, because right now it is stressful to buy a home. And if you've attempted this process, you know exactly what we're talking about. The housing market is absolutely bonkers right now. I think I just saw the average home price in Denver is $725,000, which is just insane. But let Mike and Virginia Chevalier take some of that burden off of this difficult process for you. They will alleviate so much stress and worry off your plate because the Chevalier Mortgage's ultimate goal is to take the stress out of buying and refinancing. So if you want to refinance, check them out as well. They strive to give their borrowers options with their full financial picture in mind, and they can look at your entire financial picture because Mike is a certified financial planner, meaning he can look at just more than just an interest rate as well. And they have a fun perk for DNVR listeners. If you visit them at DNVRmortgage.com, you'll enter to win a free DNVR shirt or hat of your choice when you do. And most importantly, you'll get signed up with a free consultation to discuss all of your options over at DNVRmortgage.com. You can even give them a call at 303-257-6578 or visit them at DNVRmortgage.com. Get set up with that free consultation and, of course, get entered to win some free DNVR swag.
Also want to tell you about our friends over at Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. And guess what? We've told you about the Good Company hard seltzers. They're being sold in the DNVR bar. So come on down here and get some of those Breckenridge Brew hard seltzers with a good company name on it. You know we love our beers and seltzers from Breck Brew, but what we love even more is the fact that Breckenridge Brewery has teamed up with the National Parks Conservation Association this year. The tragic fires in Colorado last year were absolutely devastating for so many. This is one of the many reasons why Breck will donate 1% of all their profits this summer to the National Parks Conservation Association. So if you buy 1 pint or 1 pack of Breck Brews, you are donating that 1% of the profits to the great outdoors. We're going to have some great events here at the DNVR to promote this. Come on down, have a Breck Brew or a good company hard seltzer, and come away with some awesome swag from Breck Brew. You can also enter to win a $30,000 escape pod trailer if you head to their website and enter to win. Just go to breckbrew.com/ingoodco. That's breckbrew.com/ingoodco for more details on winning that $30,000 escape pod trailer. Good luck, and be sure to tag us and our friends at Breckenridge Brewing when you submit your entry to win. And as always, supporting our partners is supporting us, and supporting Breck Brew is something easy to do. There's something for everybody there. If you like fruit beers like I do, Strawberry Sky is going to scratch your itch. But if you like IPAs, they've got you taken care of. Stouts, everything. That's the beauty of Breck Brew. They have such a good and wide array of beers that they really do offer something for everybody. And don't forget about the Farmhouse, their restaurant down in Littleton, right off Santa Fe. It's at their brewery. Call 303-803-1380 from noon to 8 p.m. for pickup, and use that magical code DNVR to save $5. They'll bring your order out to your car for you, or go ahead and dine in. They're open for full dine-in service down at the Farmhouse in Littleton, right off Santa Fe.
Also, make sure to check out the DNVR bar. I mean, this weekend was so cool because it shows that people want to come hang out here even if there's not sporting events in Denver going on. We already knew that it was the best place in town. Best place in the universe to watch Denver sports, but now it's just the coolest place to hang out. And so come down here, and when you do, if you're a member, get a member beer. You get 22 ounces for the price of 16 ounces. So many of us are hanging out here for every single event that's going on. Come say hi. We love meeting you. And also, when you join our family, you'll get a free t-shirt of your choice with an annual membership. All you have to do is go to thednvr.com, join our family, and the perks are endless. You get access to our members-only Discord. You get to be on 3 Ring Circus as our Red Zone guest. By the way, if you want to get in on Red Zone, hit me up and I'll throw you on the wait list. It is so much fun. The benefits are endless to joining our family. And when you do, also make sure to drop into the comment section and say hello, introduce yourself, because we love to get to know you guys. But before we get into the comment section, Mace, gotta ask you the question that is the headline of this show. Mm-hmm. Should the Broncos extend Von Miller this offseason?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. Why so?
He's coming off the injury, and obviously he's very confident, and we know that he looks good in practice, but you have to see it in the games. You've got to see it when it counts. You've got to see how he holds up. And also, you are coming off of the last full season he had being 8 sacks in 15 games.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
you're right. So
that's why I get why. Okay, maybe you get a discount right now, but I don't think he can do it yet on good conscience.
Okay, so then you said you want to see it in a game.
In games, not just one game. I'm not sitting there saying, oh, we sacked Daniel Jones 4 times, let's give him an extension. Even though if he has that kind of game in week 1, all of Broncos country is going to be saying, sign him up.
Oh, without a doubt. But let's say you can still sign him to an extension many weeks after the season. Mm-hmm. So what if I change the question to, instead of this off season, what if I said this year?
This calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
If he's doing well, then if he's doing well, he's healthy, and he shows a willingness to come back, but also not a break the bank type of thing. Again, this is going to be accounting for age. But if he's on pace to have anywhere, say 12, 13 sacks, and he's willing to sign a deal that is reflective of what he will become, then I think you try to do it in December. Kind of like Chris Harris Jr. back in 2014, right, getting him done in December. And yes, Chris did give a hometown discount, but
and then he was not happy.
He was not happy about it. Right. Now, I think with Vaughn, it's got to be the right kind of contract to where if he doesn't have the Julius Peppers arc, if he does suffer some injuries and doesn't maintain that durability, you have to structure it in a way to where you can get out of it. So it's got to be big money hitting early perhaps, and the guarantee hitting early to know, okay, if we can get out of this after 2 years, we can. But yeah, if he has a good season, I think you're willing to do that. If he's willing to take something that reflects where the actuarial tables, so to speak, indicate he's going to go.
So like we talked about in the first segment, I think there's a route for this, but I think it involves Aaron Rodgers being on the team in order to get what you're talking about
that
and
helps.
for Vaughn to take that.
Or Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater being the answer.
Right. So the team there's other factors that would have to be in play to allow that to happen. With it just focusing on Vaughn, though, I find it hard if he's having a great season to be able to get a hometown discount from him in December if those other things aren't there. Mm-hmm. But what if I throw you out a very similar contract that we just saw this offseason? I think it's something that the Broncos should do, that I would advocate for doing, Mace, which may shock some people saying I'm up for extending Vaughn right now. But it's a contract J.J. Watt got this offseason. J.J. Watt, a very similar player, very similar in his career projection. J.J. obviously was fantastic, with the best defensive player in the game. 3 out of 4 years he won defensive MVP early in his career. Von Miller, fantastic player. No one questions either of those guys, how they played in their primes. But we know in Denver what's happened to Vaughn the past couple of years. 8 sacks in the last 2 seasons. Didn't play at all last year. J.J. Watt the past 2 years hasn't been good, Mace. 2 years ago, 4 sacks. Last year, 5 sacks.
It's bigger than that because the 5-year trend on him is that he's had 5 seasons where he had 16 sacks 1 year, and in the other 4 seasons had 10.5.
Right.
Combined.
Right, exactly. But 2 years ago, Von Miller had 14.5 sacks. That was one of his best years of his career.
Right.
2 years ago, J.J. Watt had 16 sacks. So you can really see how these guys are, okay, they showed a couple years ago they still have some elite in them, but then have dropped off. Well, J.J. Watt, although he hit free agency and had to get a contract in free agency, he just got a 2-year, $28 million contract, $14 million a year. That's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
But that's a contract that I would think about with Vaughn. And now it would be an extension, so it's adding to this year, so that number, that average value, you can kind of convince yourself that it would go up. But if you're talking about extending Vaughn, adding 2 years, $28 million onto his deal now, I'm open to that because I think you're taking a risk with injuries with any player, but man, and then the expectations come down to, okay, if he's getting 10 sacks, he's living up to that because right now, J.J. Watt, in terms of edge players in the NFL, he's the 21st highest paid edge rusher in the NFL right now. And to me, it's like, okay, you shouldn't expect elite out of that, but you're also not paying elite.
Right. What about 4 years, $56 million, $30 million guaranteed? So effectively, it's a 2-year deal where you can get out of it reasonably with little cap consequence after that second year.
So you're talking, what is that, 14 annual?
It's 14 a year.
So you're just doubling.
You're doubling it, and you're basically you're giving a little more because that's why I said $30 million guaranteed because if Watt plays out that deal, he's going to make $28 million guaranteed. So I'm giving a little bit, or maybe even say something like $35 million guaranteed.
No. I'm
okay,
out.
that's the line you're not crossing.
Right now, and the reason for that is because we're talking about 2 guaranteed years after this year, and I'm also talking about what I would do right now.
Okay.
And like you, Mace, if it's going to be a huge contract, I do need to see it. So maybe this is something that I'm open to if he's having a huge season this year, but I don't view that necessarily as a hometown discount anymore. So I would give him that contract in December, but there's a chance that, let's say, first week of December, he's sitting at 11, 12 sacks with 3 or 4 games left, and he's saying, look, I could be close to 15 sack guy. I'm not taking $14 million a season. He may turn that down.
Right. And that's where the quarterback comes into play and how the team is looking overall, because if he's doing well, but the Broncos are kind of skulking along at 7-6, it's Bridgewater or Lock. They're just okay. They don't look like they're long-term franchise quarterbacks. Then I think he passes because of that. I think let's say Dak Prescott has a great year in Dallas. I think he, for example, may start casting his eyes to his home area, the Metroplex, maybe doing the reverse to Marcus Ware.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that would certainly hurt Broncos fans' hearts.
That would, especially because Dak Prescott is the guy that you might have had, but you pulled off the trade up for Paxton Lynch, and the Cowboys wanted to pull off that deal in 2016 and didn't, and so they settled for Dak Prescott.
Yep.
That would hurt on many levels.
It would.
Oh man, that's almost as bad as Kansas City.
Yeah.
Because of all the circumstances that set it up.
At least send him to the NFC and not Kansas City, though.
Yes. To where you only see Von. And actually, if Von went to Dallas, God forbid, if he goes to Dallas, you wouldn't see him unless it lined up in terms of the 17th game.
Right.
You wouldn't see him until 25.
Yeah, exactly. So you may not end up seeing him. So that may take the sting off. Instead of seeing him twice a year with Patrick Mahomes.
Or maybe if it's the Julius Peppers arc, he comes back
right.
for his final couple of years. And
right.
if he did leave and he wanted to play 5 to 7 years, I wouldn't put it past Von Miller coming back to Denver at the end the way Pep did.
That would be something. Okay. Now, obviously,
you don't close any doors ever.
No.
With a guy like Von.
No, you absolutely don't. You don't at all. And speaking of these quarterbacks, Von was asked about the quarterback situation and asked about Aaron Rodgers by Mike Kliss. Yeah. And here's what he said. He said, "What have I heard? First and foremost, I'm comfortable with Drew. I'm comfortable with Teddy. George Payton and John Elway. If A-Rod is out there for us to get him, those are the two guys to have on the job. John Elway's done a great job of working the big-time guys before Peyton and DeMarcus and Akib, all of these other guys. So if there's a big guy to be had, GP and John Elway are the two to put on it, and they can get it done. If it can't, I'm comfortable with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. They've impressed the hell out of me and impressed the hell out of everyone during OTAs. So I'm super excited for those guys. Another year for Drew Lock. I think this will be the time for him to turn it on. So either way we go, it's looking bright for us.
You know what? I think it's fair to take Von's comments about quarterbacks on the roster with a grain of salt because he is a positive guy. We know that. He's praised to some degree every quarterback the Broncos have had since Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm.
Praised Trevor, had some kind words about Paxton, praised Flacco, praised Keenum, praised Locke. So I wouldn't go taking what Von said about Drew and Teddy as like, oh, wow, they've got this
pressing the hell out of them.
Yes. Von wants to believe.
Oh, of course.
And again, he is a positive guy when in terms of hope for what he hopes for his team every year. Yep. He wants to believe. But
so then what you're saying you should take is the Aaron Rodgers part of this.
I think he basically saying what we know, that especially with John Elway, you have people you have somebody who has made some big deals. Now, I think it's interesting because George Payton, people may say, okay, he's kind of he's conservative in terms of how he attacks things. You know, there's the whole thing of the comment about Pat Surtain II being the safe option at 9. And so there's the thought that he's conservative, but at the same time, just because they did things a certain way in Minnesota doesn't mean he's going to do the things that way here. Some of what he does here is going to be a reaction to the arc of things in Minnesota. You know, they've been good, but they haven't won it all. Why? Well, they've been
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins. Or Teddy Bridgewater getting hurt. The closest the Vikings ever came to a Super Bowl when George Payton was in that building was when Brett Favre fell into their lap in training camp of 2009. And then they go on that run, and if Favre doesn't make that dumb decision in the Superdome with that great Paul Allen call, why are you passing? This is for the Super Bowl. This isn't Detroit. If you ever heard that on NFL films, I love that call. It's just so angry fan on the part of the Vikings play-by-play guy, Paul Allen. But I digress. But that's the closest they came. And so if you're Peyton, are you looking at how things went in Minnesota and saying, we were good, we accumulate a lot of talent, but we need the guy to push us over the top. Now, then the question becomes, what is he willing to sacrifice in terms of draft capital, player capital, to make it happen? But how do we know that Peyton doesn't look at what happened in Minnesota and say, oh, if Aaron Rodgers is available, we need to try to get him?
Yeah. And everything we've heard, Mace, is that they will be very interested. And a little Aaron Rodgers update. The most recent comment we heard was he said, again, he's going to enjoy the hell out of this week that he's having with golf. And then he's going to think about his future in a couple of weeks.
Figure things out in a couple of weeks.
What it means,
when he
Mace,
said,
is we're not going to know until training camp, if then.
When he said that, going to figure things out in a couple of weeks, and I just thought back to the old Gary Kubiak quote, we're fixing to find out.
Yeah, yes, we are. And I also thought that hopefully news doesn't break on my vacation next week then, because I think it's going to be a couple of weeks. I do think I think there's nothing that Aaron Rodgers is pressing right now.
No, I don't think it happens until at least in anything, there's any movement until training camp, unless he shows up in Green Bay, but I don't think he's showing up in Green Bay at the start of camp.
I really like the date you set a couple of weeks ago. You said over under August 8th. I love that. I think that's a great date.
I chose that date because it would be the most insane date for things to happen. And also, it's midway through camp. Preseason games start the following week. August 8th is the day that Peyton Manning goes into the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And actually, we're going to hear from Peyton Manning this week. He's doing his Hall of Fame conference call on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. So we're going to hear a little from Peyton about going to the Hall of Fame. And boy, I'm really excited. I'm thrilled beyond words to be able to listen to Peyton speak in a few weeks. That's going to be a fun night.
Oh, yes. It's certainly going to be fun. And May, speaking of fun, this podcast has been fun. We're done with the live part, but we're going to jump over to the comment section over in podcast. So if you're tuning in live right now, why don't you join us on the podcast side of things? Just search Broncos. Anywhere you find podcasts will be the first one that pops up, and you'll get this entire show. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, hit us with a thumbs up on your way out. We would really appreciate it. Subscribe. Turn on alerts if you want to know anytime we're going live. But thank you guys so much for tuning on the live. Mace, let's jump into the comment section.